Hello, happy Wednesday, everybody. Here's what's coming up tonight on Now. The Anthony Sanborn hearing, why it abruptly came to an end. We have all the details for you.
Plus, our weather crews aren't the only ones tracking difficult storms. We're looking into how utility crews prepare for them.
Also, 9-year-old Jacob Thompson, we introduced you to him last week. He's fighting neuroblastoma. The police were looking for him today. We'll tell you why.
This is News Center now.
System, so thank you.
Prove his innocence, but convicted killer Anthony Sanborn is a free man. The deal that got him out of prison coming up.
There may have been other people with him, but I believe it was him.
Meanwhile, the mother of the murder victim says the police did their job all those years ago, and she knows Anthony Sanborn is the killer, she says. Good evening, everyone. I'm Amanda Hill.
And I'm Lee Goldberg. After 27 years in prison and weeks of post-conviction hearings, Anthony Sanborn has accepted a deal with the state.
Sanborn was convicted in 1992 for the murder of teenager Jessica Briggs. He was sentenced to 70 years. In April of this year, he was released on bail after the state's key witness recanted her testimony. Today, the state and Sanborn's attorney agreed 70 years was cruel and unusual punishment for Sanborn, who was just a teenager at the time. Sanborn still stands convicted, but his sentence will be the time he already served, 27 years, and he will remain free. Before leaving court, Sanborn thanked the judge.
I want to thank you for being someone that had integrity enough to have the guts to do what you did. And I don't know where your stance is or what you believe, and I know this at this stage in it you can't tell me, but thank you for being someone that, because I didn't believe in anything in the system, so thank you.
Attorney Amy Fairfield says Sanborn did not accept the deal lightly, but he took it because he did not have to plead guilty or accept responsibility for Jessica Briggs' murder.
It was a very, very difficult decision. It was very measured, but he's ready to live his life.
Another reason why it was today was this was one of the first times where we could structure something where he could continue to maintain his innocence as he does.
Meanwhile, the victim's mother maintains that the police did get their man and her daughter's killer did go to jail.
Are you still somewhat satisfied with the outcome of all of this?
Yeah, I am, because he is still her convicted murderer.
And you have no doubts that there's anyone else possibly out there?
I don't.
Meanwhile, prosecutor Meg Elam called today's decision a just outcome for all people that were involved in this, especially for Jessica Briggs' family.
Last night, Maine became the first state to expand Medicaid by a referendum vote. Medicaid expansion has been passed by the legislature and vetoed by the governor 5 times previously.
For that reason, implementing the expansion will not be simple, and the stage is already set for a big battle in Augusta this winter. Christina Rex has our story.
Before the election, Governor LePage urged Mainers to vote no on question 2.
We already lived through the disaster of Medicaid expansion.
And now that it has passed, the governor is saying his administration won't implement the expansion unless his demands are met. The expansion is paid for by both the state and federal governments. The legislature's fiscal office predicts that the first year of Medicaid expansion in Maine will cost the state $13.6 million. But DHHS predictions are much higher, saying that the expansion will cost the state $63 million in year 1. Representatives from the campaign to support Medicaid expansion say
DHHS is not a credible source. The Office of Fiscal and Program Review, which is a nonpartisan office set up to calculate what these things will cost, it says it will cost $13.6 million.
The governor is following those DHHS numbers. LePage says his administration will not implement Medicaid expansion until that $63 million has been fully funded in the legislature's budget, which is no easy task.
On day 1 of a partial shutdown for our state government.
And the state government shutdown goes on.
Remember, the state government went into shutdown just this summer when legislators couldn't agree on a budget. In the case of Medicaid expansion, the governor says he will not approve any tax hikes, nor will he allow money to be taken from the state's rainy day fund. Mainers for Healthcare say they're not worried.
Last year, the state finished the fiscal year with a $111 million surplus. The money's there. This is not brain surgery.
So what does this mean for the future of Medicaid expansion? Either the legislature comes up with the money in a way that will please Governor LePage, or they have the votes to override him. Either way, though, the Medicaid expansion automatically becomes law 45 days after the legislature reconvenes.
He cannot stop it. And if he fails to implement the law once it takes effect, then we'll sue him.
Now, we did reach out to the governor's office for an interview to learn more about what his plans might be, but we were told that he was not available today.
All right, Democrats all over the country hailed the Yes on 2 vote as a victory for Obamacare. A former Obama aide tweeted last night about the referendum vote.
But he fell victim to autocorrect, and anybody who has tried to type Mainers before might know the feeling. Andy Slavitt posted breaking: 80,000 Mariners will get Medicaid coverage. Well, the Seattle Mariners seem to be a little bit confused about their newfound health care coverage because they replied saying they don't have that many players. Although with the way they played, they could use them.
Yeah, we've got the Maine Mariners coming, right?
That's true, different
All right,
ones.
Election day is over, but that doesn't mean all the seats are filled. Lewiston will have a runoff election for mayor on December 12th. None of the candidates had enough votes to win. December's election will be between Shane Bouchard and Ben Chin. The only polling place for that election will be Longley Elementary School. Nearly everyone has power back now after that storm. Central Maine Power reporting just 37 customers without it. I bet they're still waiting, though. Emera Maine reports 57 customers in the dark.
But what goes into preparing for a storm of that size? Often it starts with a weather forecast. Chris Costa and Ryan Breton show us not always easy.
Cleanup is still underway after a windstorm knocked out power to more than 400,000 people across Maine more than a week ago. Utility companies called in more than 200 reinforcements for power crews ahead of time.
We had a lot of resources in place, and we brought in more as they became available.
Central Maine Power says the forecast they received suggested a lower risk of the high wind gusts that much of Maine experienced.
We were anticipating some pretty significant gusts. Perhaps our forecasters were not anticipating them on the same scale as what some of the TV meteorologists were.
CMP says they use a combination of private and public weather sources, but could not tell us specifically which ones.
And we do not get our forecasts from the TV media. We get them from a couple of different services, and we also get some briefings from the National Weather Service.
So we drove to Gray to hear from the experts.
We're going to go speak to John Jansenius. He's the warning coordination meteorologist here at the National Weather Service in Gray.
We actually began including information on the storm the Thursday before.
As their confidence in the storm hitting hard increased, forecasters called for stronger wind gusts.
By Sunday morning, we had a very high confidence that we were going to see a very impactful storm.
Less than 24 hours does not give much prep time.
During the day.
But local meteorologists also saw the signs a few days out.
The potential, though, certainly there for 50, 55, 60 plus.
But look at this. By Monday morning, we are talking about the potential for wind gusts 65, even close to 70.
We're expecting widespread damage, power outages.
We could take in more information. We'll be looking back at those weather forecasts to see what kind of information we had, to see what actually happened, and to see if there's something we can do to do a little bit better with that part.
Now, when it comes to staffing for a storm, that's a totally different issue.
CMP says it's like a Goldilocks situation. They can't call for an abundance of extra crews in case the storm doesn't actually hit, but they balance that with not being reactive and calling in crews too late.
Isn't that a Chicken Little thing and not a Goldilocks thing? Whatever. Get my nursery rhymes confused.
No, we'll go with it. All right, Lanza police cars from all over New England were in Portland today to help fulfill a Christmas wish for a special boy.
So it's just amazing that one little boy has touched lives from all around the world.
9-year-old Jacob Thompson had hundreds of first responders looking for him today. We'll have that story coming up.
Traffic was shut down in Portland this afternoon, bringing in officers from all over New England. It was all for one special little boy.
You might remember the story of Jacob Thompson, a 9-year-old at Maine Medical Center battling brain cancer. He might not make it until Christmas, so his family put out a request for people to mail him Christmas cards so they could celebrate early. because his two favorite things are penguins and police officers. Some officers in Massachusetts were touched by his story. A Homeland Security agent spread the word. Officers gathered in Stoughton, Massachusetts this morning and in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. They brought gifts and cards for Jacob's Christmas. Then they formed a caravan around Maine Medical Center so Jacob and other children at the hospital could see how many people support them.
Having the opportunity to bring a little bit of happiness to Jacob means everything. It really reminds us why we do this.
I just hope that, he has a special Christmas and, that his family and knows that everybody loves him.
Now, reaction to Jacob's story has spread all across the world. Cards have come in from as far away as Antarctica and Dubai. For Jacob and his family, it has been overwhelming.
This is all for you. This is all for you, honey.
An estimated 100 law enforcement vehicles made their way past the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital this afternoon. They came from all over New England. They came for Jacob.
The one right in, it's the black. Oh, the black one?
Isn't that cool?
It's kind of like a blue.
Ever since we first introduced you to Jacob Thompson 1 week ago, he has been overwhelmed with tens of thousands of cards, thousands of presents, and an unmeasurable amount of love.
It's phenomenal because naturally I always thought he was special, and now the world knows he's special, and he has brought a lot of positive to other people. It reminded them that this is the time for giving and sharing.
Merry Christmas, Jacob. I say oodles of silly things, try me.
This weekend, Jacob will celebrate Christmas. His family wants to make sure he gets to do that at least one more time. And as many things as Jacob has received from total strangers, he has given as well.
I always knew he was going to do something good. And in 9 years, he's done things that people in their 90s haven't accomplished by bringing people together and having people who have differences and whatever put that aside and say, look at this little boy. Let's do something to show him that we're thinking of him and that he's touched us.
Okay, can he even move around in his hospital room at this point?
He was walking around a little bit today.
But I mean, it's got to be stuffed with toys.
Yes, no, there's stuff everywhere. I mean, I was there a week ago, and I was back today for the first time since last week. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And they have storage sheds for stuff.
Oh
like,
my
that's
gosh.
How much stuff. So
that's really great. All right, when we come back, it's a bit of an unusual hobby, but you asked and Tennyson followed through. Tennyson tries blacksmithing when we come back.
And some parts of Maine are starting to see snow. Will there be any more this week? KC coming up in the forecast. I wonder how many times I'll have to see that before I stop laughing. It's that time of the week again. Another edition of our newest segment, Tennyson Tries It.
Last week, you all voted for what you wanted to see Tennyson do next. This week, he is getting in touch with a more traditional side of Maine.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us on this edition of Tennyson Tries It. Now, last week, you guys voted and your voices were heard. I am going to be blacksmithing on this edition, and I have my safety goggles on. I am here in Orrington. Let the fun begin. Let's do it. The sound of hammers clanging and metal clacking. The forge is heating up. It's just another day at this blacksmithing workshop at the Curran Homestead Village in Orrington.
No feeling like it.
Dwight King is a blacksmithing instructor.
You're creating something with just a straight, mild piece of metal before, and you're going to turn it into something that's going to last probably pretty much forever.
A crash course in good old Maine resourcefulness.
This is pretty Maine, I think. A lot of the things that you see people do is a lot of self-reliant stuff.
Each year, the folks here at the Curran Homestead Village hold 4 6-week beginner classes.
It's kind of cool to have a unique hobby and be able to move metal. You can take just a piece of metal off the shelf and make a bracket, make a hook.
Now it's my turn to give it a try. King shows me how to make a simple hook that can be used to hang things, like a hat, a coat, or a birdhouse. Blacksmithing is all about making metal move at your disposal. Once the metal heats up and turns a bright yellow, I can make it bend or chip away at it with little effort.
It's hammer control.
I must say, it took me a while to get the hammer control down. There's a science to making the perfect hook, and after a few minutes, it's starting to take shape. For many blacksmiths, this is a great way to release some tension.
We spend a lot of time in technology, looking at stuff like this all the time, and I think it's a good release.
I spent a few hours with these blacksmiths, and I won't call myself an expert just yet, but I'm definitely getting the hang of it, all pun intended. It takes a lot of patience and attention to detail. All right, guys, well, this is how far I've gotten with this hook. I have the finial of the hook there, and you can use this to hang things up, so it comes in handy once in a while. But sadly, that's all the time we have for Tennyson Tries It this week. But like I always say, if I can try it, so can you.
Okay. Was it really that fun, Tennyson?
It was so much fun, but I do not think I'm going to quit my day job because it's a lot of work.
What are you hanging on that hook?
Right now I have a few hats that I can hang on there. Definitely needed to find a space for them.
You with a hammer, man. If you had a hammer, you'd hammer in the morning, you'd hammer in the evening.
Oh, you know, as MC Hammer would say, please hammer, don't hurt him.
Yeah.
So that's my new motto.
There, and let's end it there.
All right,
there we go.
And scene. All right, there you go. Tennyson Tries It, everybody.
What do we got next? Are we voting on his next one yet, or? No,
that
we're still
is
working on it.
TBA.
Okay.
Something big.
What's our budget on this? Can we
big.
do like something real crazy?
Probably not.
Turns out we spent it all on weather.
Can we do something? Karen, can we do something real crazy? Let's see. I'd like to spend some extra money and do something wild. Okay, we'll do weather.
Okay.
I know. Yes.
That's nice of you to
Quiet down,
volunteer Tennyson for
Ortiz.
something crazy.
No, like safe, but crazy. All right, right now, we're dropping into the 30s already. Look at Berlin sitting at 28 degrees, and it's not been dark for very long. It's going to be a cold night tonight, especially with mainly clear skies. That allows that heat that we got during the day, which wasn't much, to radiate into the atmosphere very quickly. So overnight lows are going to be in the teens in almost most locations away from the coastline. 20s in Portland. This is the coldest night so far at Rockland and Bar Harbor as well, ending up in the mid-20s. It's going to be a lot colder as we go later in the week. Hour by hour forecast, clear, chilly tonight. Tomorrow we start with a lot of sunshine, but clouds move in during the afternoon, and our Arctic front arrives sometime on Friday morning. Once that front comes through by Friday morning, temperatures plummet throughout the day. So our daytime high will likely be around midnight, and then temperatures will fall throughout the day. We'll see gusty winds, snow squalls in here, and some of those snow squalls will accumulate in the mountains. After that, it's cold but sunny on both Saturday and Sunday. It's a good looking weekend, but it's not that comfortable as far as those temperatures go. I think an inch or two is possible on Friday here in the higher terrain, particularly into the mountains. So places like Sugarloaf and Sunday River that have fired up their guns. Mount Washington Valley emailed me that they fired up their snow guns. They could see an inch or two of natural snow coming through. But watch these temperatures on Friday going from the upper 30s quickly down into the 20s and eventually in some spots into the single digits for Saturday morning. Wind gusts, very important, very top of mind to everybody right now. They're going to be very gusty on Friday through Friday afternoon and early evening. We could see wind gusts in excess of 50 miles an hour Friday later in the day. So just be aware of that. Shouldn't knock out too much additional power, but obviously wind gusts over 50 miles an hour are always something to watch. A mix of precipitation possible on Wednesday in the mountains. I think most of us will see cold rain there, but our pattern has flipped in a large way, and it will be downright cold. And I try not to use that word at this time of the year, but single digits are cold.
That qualifies.
Yeah, that's cold.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, I guess we say thank you very much. So
yeah,
thank you very much.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like a good old Apple glitch to ruin your texts and your captions and even your memes. I'm Katie Ortiz with a Social Stop Rundown. iPhone users are still grappling with a glitch that turns the letter I into a really weird symbol. Apple says they're working on a fix, but for now there is a workaround. Just go to Settings, and then hit General, then go to Keyboards, then click Text Replacement, and there you can make it so the letter I automatically changes to the letter I. I know, it's a novel concept. Now you're primed for perfect tweets now that you can send out 280 characters. Twitter doubled the character limit yesterday for all users. Back in September, they tested out the new feature for certain people, and they say after the first few days, they found that people tweeted below 140 characters most of the time. Their goal was to have every person around the world express themselves easily in one tweet while ensuring speed and brevity of Twitter. Now, the reaction is mixed so far, but people are definitely taking full advantage, including me, because you can't obviously fit Whitney Houston into 140 characters. Also, German bureaucrats celebrated the news, however, because they can finally tweet about this insanely long word that I will not even try to pronounce, but apparently it's a law concerning the transfer of oversight responsibilities for beef labeling. So there's that. Lee and Amanda.
All right, Katie, thank you very much.
All right, Cindy Williams has a preview of what's coming up at 5:30.
Yeah, guys, a really serious story coming up in the next half hour. The hunter accused of killing that woman who was on her own property is in court today. The family of the victim says that they were just outraged to learn that the shooter did not run and help her just as soon as he realized his mistake. We've got details from the courtroom coming up. Also, running a marathon can be a lofty goal for any athlete, but what about 31 marathons in 31 days as a double amputee? Impressive. All ahead at 5:30.
Wouldn't even drive that far.
Incredible.
Okay. News Center Now continues after the break.
All right. Today's brain drops. I'm trying to think of things to make Tennyson do, but I'll get back to that in a second. FDA put out this advisory on black licorice. And you know how, and I'm sure Lee, you've said this many times, don't OD on that candy, don't overdo it. And typically you can't, other than the fact that you get, a lot of sugar and whatever. Yeah.
And then you throw
But actually, licorice apparently has an ingredient in the natural licorice that lowers potassium levels in your body. And the lower potassium levels can lead to abnormal heart rhythms. And so they've actually hospitalized people who eat too much licorice. Now, you have to eat a lot of it.
Is it black licorice?
Black,
I see black.
Yes, black
Okay,
licorice.
So red, like Twizzlers, I'm good.
I don't believe, yes, I think it's just the black
Just wanna be
licorice.
clear.
And it's actually for people over 40, so it's not really the kids. It's the reason I bring this up on this part of November is it's probably the only kind of candy you have left because nobody likes it. So at this point, you're at the point where you're trying to eat all this. You can't eat too much of it, or you can actually get physically
For the two people who actually
You don't
eat
like
black licorice.
No.
Do you like it?
No.
What about
Who
Good and
eats
Plenty?
it?
Good and Plenty is black
No.
licorice covered in candy.
I would take Good and Plenty over black licorice.
I
Point
like-
is,
I
apparently
like
we have
black
our
licorice.
executive producer at night is a big fan. This is what I'm hearing in my ear. So don't.
The other
all the
problem
time.
is, though,
Yep.
I'm not over 40, so it's not a problem.
Right, that's.
Yeah.
So this was totally irrelevant then, actually.
Just saying.
Give
or
or
take.
take.
I'm just gonna,
For once, I
let
actually
that one slide.
left us time.
Look at you.
All right, you're at 5:30. Right now.